You know how on an earlier podcast, Erik said he had the dirt on me? Well, guess what? I officially have the dirt on him because we just had his wife on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast. And my goodness, these two have an amazing story to share about how they went from the corporate world and being an entrepreneur to going, wait, we have got to do something more. We have got to create different streams of revenue because we need a different quality of life. And they took charge, they took action, and they made it happen. Please join us on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the truth about real estate investing. And we get some more dirt on Erik. Welcome to the Real Estate Pessimist podcast, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the truth about real estate investing. I'm your co-host, Christy Candle. I'm a real estate developer, investor, and I teach locals how to become developers in their own backyard. And today we have a special show for you because not only do I have my co-host, Erik Stenbakken on, but I have his better half on the show. So Erik, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and then introduce this amazing woman?
Well, yeah, I am Erik Stenbakken, co-host, and together with my wife, Gelerie, we've been investing in real estate for 15 years, more now, and well, we are partners in this, and that's what the show is about. And I wouldn't be the co-host here talking about real estate if it wasn't for her. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm Gelerie. I'm actually an anesthesiologist, and because of real estate, I have been able to work the way I want to work. And so I am no longer working on weekends. I am no longer doing call. I just work the days that I want to work. And I think that that's one of those great things about having real estate and having a secondary income.
I do want to ask, how many podcasts have you guys done together talking about your different endeavors?
I don't know.
Maybe three.
3, 4. Yeah, it's been a few, but not hundreds.
Okay. And then when you get on, what's the main purpose or reason for doing those? Is it to share your story or what's the...
Yeah, mainly to share my story. But the thing is, because I'm a physician, sometimes I think that other physicians are interested in, is there more to medicine? What can I do for retirement? How can I shelter my income and get tax benefits? And oftentimes that involves real estate. And so that is why I've been involved in some of those podcasts.
Yeah, I come across so many high earners in different fields, and they're just like, wait, but I'm paying these taxes. I'm not building wealth. If I stop working, the money stops coming in. So I'm curious, whose idea was it initially to say, let's give real estate a try? Because I know Erik has his different entrepreneurial stuff. You have part of that as well. But how did that all start?
Yeah, I think it started with my obsession to buy land here in Colorado. I was just determined to buy some land. I've told that story before about when I was a kid here and meeting a guy who in the mountains owned everything you could see from his cabin, which was a stop on the Pony Express and the Overland stagecoach and stuff like that. It was crazy. I'm like, I have to buy land in Colorado. And I was looking at 40-acre lots, and she told me there is no way I'm going to be composting our poop. That's not happening. And so I was like, wow, okay. So these far out, just parcels that are undeveloped, I can't really make that make sense. And so we left it because we couldn't afford anything else, or at least so we thought. And then one evening we were invited by some friends of ours to their house to play this game called Cash Flow. But like, come to somebody's house to play a board game sounds so weird. But we said, okay, fine, we'll do it. And we played it. We played 2 whole games of that. And if you've ever played it, this isn't a game you get through in 10 minutes.
It's like Monopoly, except a lot more realistic.
Way more realistic.
I've now heard this game a couple times. I need to play this game because I love Monopoly and dominating, but I feel like I would have more fun on this.
It's amazing. And Kiyosaki, he wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad basically as an advertisement for the game. That's what Rich Dad, Poor Dad was supposed to be. It was a marketing piece for the game. And it turns out the game got not as much light as the book did. But anyways, we played this with our friends. And on the drive home, I distinctly remember this. We looked at each other, well, as much as you can driving on the interstate. And I just said, if this is how things work, then we're doing it wrong. We have to do something else. Because otherwise, is in the game, there's you just collect your pay and go around and you spend your money on all your expenses, and then you hit payday again, and then you go around, and it's an endless circle. And the way the game is built, and it's a game and it's made to make a point, right? That unless you invest in something in the game, you never get out of the rat race. And we said, wow, that's us. And unless we do something different, things will never change. And it was that night we decided we have to do something.
So you were completely on board when he said that? You said, hook, line, and sinker, I'm in, let's do it. Where's this adventure going?
Yeah, I think I was. I think at that point we were just trying to figure out what we were going to do with our income and savings. And I was investing. We were investing in 401k, but it wasn't the same. And I think we just wanted to try something different. And I also figured, if this is going to work, it'll be a great thing for us. The risk was pretty low. So I was willing to take that challenge on.
We started with long-term rentals where we bought in an area with really, really, really high demand. I remember we got into this in, I think 2010, and prices were still relatively low. And so we figured, it's probably going to be safe. It's safe in the sense that we won't lose everything, right? You can buy a penny stock and somebody makes a tweet and the next day your investment's just gone. And we thought, okay, if we buy a property near the university and we take good care of it, it will probably still be worth something. And so we began that process there. One of the important things is why we got started is lifestyle. This was she'd been working full-time, which full-time in her world was 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And there are people
so Gelerie, tell me, when you're working that, what does that look like? What does a week look like? Are you in Monday through Friday in 12-hour days? Are you weekends? Are you on call?
That means I can be during the day. I work from 7 to 4. And then after that, you can get called back. And then sometimes you have to stay in-house in the hospital for 24 hours. And then also in addition to that, sometimes I would have to stay a little bit longer because they didn't have enough people covering cases or whatnot. And so I wouldn't be done until maybe 10 or 11 the next day, which, I mean, after a while that wears on you. And so I was doing that for about 3 years and got to the point where I wanted out. And so I really was struggling to figure out what to do. It ended up, I was actually praying to God that I just needed out. I just needed somebody to give me a break so that I could maybe do part-time job share or something like that. And it didn't happen. And instead, we lost our contract at the hospital. And so for a brief period of time, maybe a week, I felt like, okay, I'm jobless now. I'm going to be jobless in a month or two. But then healthcare, being a physician and an anesthesiologist, it is not that hard to find another job. And so I was able to find a position, but I transitioned that. When I found that position, I actually said, this is what I want. I want to be part-time. I don't want to do these kind of hours anymore. And so that's how I started my second job.
So God's way of answering that was to say, let's make sure this contract goes away so you don't have any excuse or reason to stay in this. And then you're going to call your own shot with this next place because you're going to say from the beginning, I want a better quality of life. I want a better outcome. I want something different. I love that.
Yeah. Well, it was quite scary and pretty devastating at the time. But, at least now I don't cry when I talk about it. So
yeah,
I am with you. I was just talking to someone else and I'm like, I think that we run hard, we go achieve, we conquer, we climb up this ladder. And sometimes it takes getting broken in many ways. We've talked like personally, professionally, the last 3 years of my life personally have been crazy. And but I think sometimes because there is such a bigger future that's ahead that if we aren't completely broken, we're never going to take that complete risk and then go forward. So
I think that was important. I think that was a really important part of it because without the discomfort, we could have just said, well, we'll just keep doing it. Now, this is important that right during this time, my work had started to tank because as a professional photographer, I did commercial work and my biggest clients were state universities all over the US. And they ran out of tax money, to fund things like freelancers. And so I was sitting on my hands and we were both ready for something different. And we played cash flow and we realized, oh no, this is real. Like if you quit just running around that middle circle, collecting your paycheck every time, as soon as that quits, it's over. And the idea that, someone else is going to just always be there for you and you just always have a steady paycheck, that was removed from both of us. And we thought, we need to do something different. It's a theme that we've heard before, the Deatons, when we were talking about land flipping. It's like, wow, when that discomfort hits and you realize, actually, no, my employment isn't as guaranteed and safe as I thought, then we said, okay, we need to do something else. We didn't see it as a main thing, to be clear. We weren't like, we're going to quit our jobs and jump into real estate investing. It was like, we'll do something on the side. We'll just kind of put some training wheels on in case we hit a rough patch. And that'll give us some extra stability. Maybe I should say outriggers, just to give us a little bit more stability is what we wanted. And it grew and grew.
I think too, we also had in mind that eventually those properties would be paid off, and that would be part of our retirement plan also. And so it wasn't something that we saw revenue or cash flow. Well, we were going to see some, but pretty minor. But the thought was later in retirement, that will be our nest egg, basically.
Agreed. That was my thought too, getting into longer term rentals or even shorter term and leveraging the 30-year loans we can get. I thought, I'm going to keep working because I've got this energy. I'm not going to stop right now, but I'm going to be really grateful in 30 years when those are paid off. And now I have that appreciation and that money. And what it turns into though is you're also really grateful that you have multiple revenue streams. So when life does life, and you go, I am not completely sunk right now. Hey, can we talk business for a second? If you've been flipping houses or running short-term rentals, you already know how to hustle. You know how to spot opportunity, add value, and make a property work harder. But if we're being honest, flipping gets exhausting, and short-term rentals are definitely not passive. So what's next? For a lot of people I work with, the answer is real estate development. I'm talking about turning a vacant lot into a quadplex, or bringing a rundown building back to life as a mixed-use space. I'm Christy Candle, and I've been a real estate developer my entire career. And now I host the Local Real Estate Developer podcast to help locals like you do the same. We pull back the curtain and show you what it takes to go from flipper or host to local developer. If you're ready to build something bigger, this podcast is for you. Check out the Local Real Estate Developer podcast on all platforms.
Yes.
And that was, to fast forward 2-3 years ago, she asked her employer for a sabbatical, a month off. It's unpaid, by the way. Some friends of ours, his family actually, was shocked to hear that we have never had PTO, paid time off. Never. You leave and you don't get paid. That's just how it works in our world.
You go for a week and you just lost a quarter of your income for the month. So that's just the way it is.
We got tired of that. And as it built up over time, this is 13 years later, when she asked for a sabbatical, a month off, unpaid, and they said no. That's when I remember we were sitting at the kitchen table and she was looking really sad that they had just said no. And I looked over and I said, you don't have to ask them for permission.
And I guess that when he said that, the light bulb went off in my head and I was like, no, I don't, do I? And I didn't make any changes at that time. But I mean, I put that, in the back of my mind and I kept it there. And then when things started getting to be more uncomfortable and when they were saying, oh, well, you're going to probably have to do more call. You're going to have to do call again. Cause I was able to give it away because I had seniority. I was able to give it away and I didn't have to work weekends. And then they said, well, these things might change in the future. Then I thought, I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm done with that. And I think when COVID happened in 2020, my attitude about working and how long I was going to work, that changed that. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to take the chances when I can and try to do it the way I want to do it, my way.
So then was it during COVID that you made your shift to what you're doing now, and what is that?
It just basically, I've just always been going less and less time and doing part-time, but I think in 2020, I think we started really leaning into short-term rentals.
Yeah. And that's when I looked at the 80-20. Where am I spending 80% of my time, but what's doing the returns? And I realized, wow, where I'm putting my time in photo video is not what's giving the long-term returns. And so I shifted into that more. That grew significantly 2020, 21, 22. And that gave us enough cushion that she was able to go PRN, resign her partnership. And so when they said, as a partner, you have to this, and this, she said, well,
no, I don't.
Yeah. It's not an easy decision to make. No. And I have no ill feelings towards the company that I was with. In fact, I still work for them, just when on the days that I have availability. And so I was very thankful for the many years that they've given me and the flexibility that they gave me too. But it was just at that time I was like, well, I think I'm ready for something else now.
I love that when you hit that freedom where you can make that choice. To me there's no better feeling, and to say, hey, we're going to choose to go on this vacation and we're going to live life on our terms.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Okay, so kind of diving more into your real estate ventures. You started with long-term rentals. That seemed like the safe, let's get revenue generation, and that started, was that 2011 to 2020? And then that's
2010.
Okay.
2010 we started that. And we actually got 5 long-term rentals pretty quickly within a 2 years span. And then we kind of were coasting after that because we thought, well, once we get these paid off, we'll be generating $100,000 and that's all we need. Well, we're good. So we were just coasting after that.
Our math was so bad because we didn't know, like many people who get started, the difference between gross and net. We thought, oh, it's grossing this much. That's how much money we will have. Well, spoiler alert, no. Gross is not the same as net. And especially as you get into short-term rentals, that is so not the case, because we had done the math thinking, well, when they're paid off, that's just all our money. Well, we hadn't thought about things like, oh, a roof is going to cost $15,000. And guess what? A house that's 20, 30, 40 years old is going to need a roof. It's going to need a water heater. You are going to have a hose bib freeze. All those things that just happen. I mean, hey, I met with an arborist a week or two ago. Guess what? Taking down large trees is really expensive, and so the cash flow that you're getting, especially on top of debt service, as I was talking to my renters and they said, oh, is this expensive? I said, well, really, given the cash flow that we get above the debt service we have right now, taking down these trees is about 1.5 years worth of rent cash flow just to deal with these trees. And so we're not keeping those for cash flow. That's not what it is. But the point is, we had done terrible math. We just thought, oh, wow, we're going to be just rolling in the money when these things get paid off. And it isn't. Taxes go up, fees, short-term rentals, oh my word, fees go up, expenses go up. All those kinds of things happen. So basically, we realized, no, actually, that's not going to put us into retirement.
But yeah, so anyway, we started in 2010, and I think I thought it was a reasonable thing to do. And then in 2016 was when we started doing short-term rentals.
Okay.
And mainly the first one was actually going to be a vacation home for us. It's just that we found out you can actually generate cash flow from renting it to other people, and they're going to pay our mortgage.
That was a fast decision.
Yeah. Does that make you go, hold on. I could live here and use this, or I could have this pile of change coming in.
And so we didn't even think it was going to be flowing in the black. We just thought, hey, it's going to offset. Because remember back to my, I want to buy land. I want to buy something in the mountains. We ended up looking at a community in the mountains here, just outside of Rocky Mountain National Park. And we found a place like, oh, wow, we could buy something here. We were going to rent, and we ended up finding the owners, taking them to dinner. And we hadn't even gotten the main course yet when we decided we're going to buy it, because we realized, hey, this is going to pay for itself at least, or very, very close to it, because the people were telling us, well, this is how much revenue we generate from this vacation rental. And we said, oh, that's it. Then we're in for sure. We're just doing this thing. Because see, we had bought homes before. We had done a lot of renovation before, because my work was so slow in photography, video. I was doing the renovations myself. And we said, we've bought places before. We've renovated before. We've dealt with renters before. This is going to be more renters on a shorter basis. We can handle this.
Yeah.
And did you know that, having done long-term and short-term rentals myself, did you know the full scope of operations that come with a short-term rental?
No.
What were some lessons learned in there? What were some stories in that?
Well, I think one of the advantages to that is, at first we actually had a booking company book our places for us. And so that was actually worked out pretty well for the first couple of years, because then that allowed us to do maintenance on the property and also manage some of the guest communications during the time that they were there. But we felt like there was less pressure on us. But then we eventually transitioned to being self-managers. And then we had software that helped us with automation. And so that was helpful. But you still got weird questions or people who did weird things at the cabin, and also the scammers who were like, oh, we found a mouse dropping. And, when you start, you're kind of naive and like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you found that. That's awful. Well, it turns out probably that person was planting mouse droppings at the cabin because our cleaners were like, we have never seen that at your cabin.
Yeah, right in the middle.
No, a
Right in the
guest
middle
would
of the
never
bed,
plant poop or
in the middle of the
droppings,
bed,
never.
on the bed.
Yeah, it's like,
And I'm like, how did that get there? And the guy's like, well, they were probably on the ceiling. And that's like, I didn't know. Basically, yeah, we didn't know that some people were scammers, and we didn't know that some people just don't know how to use a house. They would message us, it's so cold here, it's uninhabitable. And we could see, because we had Wi-Fi thermostat, like, you turned off the heater. Maybe that's why it's cold in the house, in the mountains in the winter.
Or we don't have hot water. Well, we do have hot water for a little bit, and then it goes away, and then it comes back again.
And everybody showers, and then there's no hot water. And then it comes back. Yes, but we don't have hot water. Actually, you do. You've just used it up. So we didn't know, right? Just all these things. One of the funniest ones in that relation is somebody messaged me. It was somebody that she knew and says, your stove is broken. It doesn't work. I'm like, what? It's like, well, it works. The stovetop, it works, and then it doesn't work. It works, and it doesn't work. I'm like, what? Like, it was an electric top. The burner turns on, then turns off, then turns on, then turns. Yeah. I was just like,
I'm only laughing so hard because literally in the past 2 weeks, everything you said has happened at a property. No. When I'm telling someone else the story about it, she's like, there's no way humanity is that dumb. I'm like, no, there is. We need to have a whole podcast on short-term rentals and what guests do.
We've had people leave dirty diapers.
Diaper fairy that's just going to come and pick up a pile of dirty diapers.
It's just like, what? Anyways.
So, yeah, we've learned a lot about that. And in some ways, I think it was to our advantage that we were a bit naive about it because,
Agreed.
Yeah, let's go. I mean, what could happen? Because we've made it through things. But if we had waited, and this I think is a really important point, if we had waited until we felt that we knew everything, we would never have started.
We would not have started.
Not just because of fear, but the fact is, you will never know everything. It's just
facts.
And so
within your two's dynamic, then who is more the, hey, let's go do it? Who is the one that holds it back? Like, hold on, let's do a reality check. Because I'm sure there's a little bit of that, but also you both have shown clearly that you'll take action, that you won't overanalyze, you will jump in. But how does that dynamic work?
Well, I think it just depends on the situation. Like when we're shopping for houses, I think I'm the person who's the no person. I'm like, no, I don't want that one. But then Erik has these wild harebrained ideas too. Like, oh, let's buy this one and we can put an outdoor pool in. Let's just call a contractor and see if we can put this outdoor pool in. And I'm like, no, but it could work. It could work. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. And there's that. And so I think if I get super excited about a house, usually Erik's going to be excited about it. I mean, I found some long-term rentals, and I found our first vacation rental, our first cabin. I found it. And I actually said, we are going to go see it right now. As soon as we can see it, we're going to go. And usually when I say that, usually he's supportive of that. And he's like, okay, we'll go do it. So I feel a little bad sometimes that I keep telling Erik. But he has a lot more ideas than I do.
Is that because he has more time on his hands, or?
No, I think he has a tendency as an entrepreneur, as someone who's always been thinking of ways how he can generate income. That's just his mental space. My space is like, I have this job. I'm going to do it by the book. This is how I need to do it. And then I don't have very much, extra here, but so I'm used to that. I don't know. We are pessimists or optimists. We change at times. If we're both pessimists, then that's really bad.
Yeah. If we're both, the thing is that when it comes to real estate, when things go badly, fortunately, both of us seldom are in the same mindset at the same time.
That's good.
And when we are, and it's positive, then we know this is most likely a good thing. And so some things that we've gotten into started out as a good thing, and then external forces, and maybe there were signs. I don't want to say maybe, there were signs, but we both were optimistic. We jumped in, and some of those things turned out to be rough. But as to roles, I think, yeah, she's been willing to be supportive in the adventure, like, let's just go do this. But remember, I'm the one who had mountain bike, and I'm the one who had a motorcycle, and I'm the one who bungee jumped, and I'm the one who scuba dived before, and she's certified now. But that was kind of my thing, right? And all the time in my work as a freelancer, I'm unemployed. If I do my job right, I finish the job unemployed because I have done the thing for the client and they're happy. And so I've had to be adventurous, and I've had to push hard, and I've had to say, well, let's try this. Let's try this other thing. And part of my work as a photographer, and as I've taught some of this to other people, I said, you go in on an assignment and you get the safe thing first. As the first thing you do is you get your safety shot, that if all else fails, you have something that can be published. And then you go and push the boundaries. Then you get creative. Then you get inventive. Then you take risks. 95 times out of 100, the client likes the risky one a little better. Now, 50% of the time, they're not brave enough to actually use it, but they like the other one better. But that's been my experience is in the background is to push those boundaries. And hers in medicine, you don't go in and just, hey, nobody's ever done this before. Let's try this. Like, that's just not how you do medicine. And so together, and I think this is a very important thing, is that we both bring our strengths. We respect each other's strengths and spidey senses. And that's what makes us a better team. Yeah, I mean, our ratio of yes to no's is that I'll look at a place like, yeah, we might be able to make it work. And she's more likely to say no, which in the long run probably has saved us a ton of work. And who knows what kind of thing. It's not a blame thing. It's when we're in alignment.
So
we
speaking
can
to that, to get
fast.
into alignment, you said you trust each other's spidey senses, but do you have anything a little more formal when you go to make that decision and say, hey, we're pulling the trigger on this property, we're making this big decision? Do you have like a buy box, a checklist, a methodology for how you guys go about setting that?
Yes, we definitely, when we're looking for a property, we definitely have a buy box. And that was one of the reasons why we bought a property in 2023. It hit all of the things in our buy box. It wasn't great timing in terms of when we were going to buy it, but it was an opportunity that came up. It was in the right price range. It had the amenities that we wanted. It had the income potential that we wanted to generate. We had that already all written out, basically. And so once we found it, we were like, okay, well, we don't really have a whole lot of excuses except we just want to say, no, we're not taking this on right now. And so, but we did have, and we also had the cash to do it. So we took the chance.
So yeah, there was a very specific, and this wasn't a fuzzy feeling, kind of like, I don't know, we'll know it when we see it. We had it very, very specific. Here's how old it needs to be. Here's the geographical region it needs to be in. Here's how many bedrooms it has to have. Here's the amenities it has to have. Here's this. One of them was it needed to be, if there was an HOA that was built pretty much exclusively for vacation rentals.
Yeah.
Not this idea of like, well, you're just buying, people's housing and turning it into, okay, I'm not going to argue that point, but my point is that in our buy box, we said specifically, this is going to be a vacation rental community. Full stop. Nobody lives there. Mm-hmm. Everybody who owns it to rent it. That was one of our criteria. So we did have very, very specific criteria. It was written down. We did have it sent to our real estate agent. And when she called us, she said, I think we have a thing. Here we thought, I don't think you have a thing because it's so tight. Does that even exist? And sure enough, it was exactly that. But it was written down, and we had communicated it to our agent. And this is a really big deal. I heard this just yesterday on a different podcast. Somebody saying, it's like, bring me a deal. Well, what is a deal? But if somebody says, the deal that I want is a fourplex inside city limits with rent at this rate, with age of this, like, well, then the agent knows that's what you're looking for. And both you and your agent know what it is. And it actually takes a lot of mental load off. Because it's like flicking Cheerios off a table. You can just like, nope, just that fast. And then when something fits, you can say, oh, wait a minute, let's take a look at this.
That's such a good point. I was just talking to someone yesterday. He had a friend who runs a REIT and they deal with high dollar amounts. He's like, oh, I want to learn from him and this and that. And he was talking about larger dollars and maybe meeting with the investors. And I was like, well, if you got $5 million tomorrow, what would you do with it? Oh, well, I guess I'd buy an apartment complex. Great. How long would that take you to find? Oh, probably like 6 to 12 months. Okay. So you're not ready for that much money, are you? So you need to get really clear with what is it that you do want. If someone gave you $250,000 tomorrow, you could tell them, I'm going to go buy 5 duplexes, 50 grand down on each, and then I'm going to do X, Y, and Z in property managed. That's how clear you need to be to make that all work, because we think we want something. What are you going to do with that when you get it?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am co-host of this podcast because education is my calling. That's also why I developed a course on short-term rentals. It's called STR in an Hour, and it's perfect for busy professionals. It's a lot of content packed into 1 hour. No fluff, no upsell. It's an overview of STRs from A to Z. Everything from how to choose a property to how to estimate income and expenses. It's literally the best and most content I could pack into 59 minutes. With over 4,000 nightly stays in my own STRs, I've learned important lessons, and I want to share them with you. Link with more information in the show notes.
All right. So I don't want to open any old wounds, but I have heard Erik's story about this Tennessee property and losing 1,000 on one door. I've heard it from his perspective. I think we've done some therapy sessions on it, but I'm very curious to see from your end and your perspective going through this whole debacle of everything possible happening, what that was like.
Well, I feel like we thought we had an amazing deal. And in retrospect, I think that we should have just stepped back and been like, well, how can this be so good? Because, we say the thing, if it seems too good to be true, it is. And we fell for it. And we kept saying, well, it would only, even if it isn't this deal, if it costs just $100,000 more or something extra, that's okay. We can cover it, which is true. We could, but we did not recognize that this person was a fraudster, that he was going to take advantage of us. And it just drug on so long. And there was always these little bits of hope that, oh, maybe it's going to actually start getting better. Maybe this is going to get taken care of. So then we kept thinking, oh, this will resolve itself. But finally, we just got to the point where we realized we're trying to be honest business people, and we try to, deliver what we promise. And he obviously was not that same type of business person.
And can you back up a little bit and maybe give a high level? We'll have people go back. I think it was episode 2 where it's literally called How to Lose 500,000 on a Door, but maybe just describe what's this type of project and property and what was that in general?
Okay, so it was going to be a 5-bedroom vacation rental cabin in the town proper of Pigeon Forge. And it was going to have an indoor pool, and it was going to be amazing. We were going to generate a bunch of income. We thought it had potential for $150,000 to $200,000 a year for gross revenue, and we were going to get it for under $800,000.
Which is fantasy, by the way, in case you're wondering. It's not real.
So you were going to build that for under 800,000, and that was dirt included?
No, that was not.
Okay. So that was the vertical, but you also then bought the property.
Yeah. So it was closer to just under 900,000 probably.
Yeah. Not in the minutes. Anyways, it would look like a really good deal.
Yeah.
We went forward with it because we did have a buy box. It checked all the things on the buy box, and we jumped into this thing thinking that worst case scenario, we could sell it and clear a couple $100,000 when we're done, because we thought there was that much headroom, like between what we bought it for and what we could sell it for.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out, and to be clear about this, we didn't lose $500,000 out of pocket. What we lost was what we thought we were going to make. We did end up losing money out of pocket. We absolutely did, and still are to some degree on that, because we had to take out a lot of debt. But it just kept snowballing, getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And
when you know that you've got a property that's mid-build and has already a structure up, but it's getting rained on because it has no roof, and you're trying to get the person to put a roof on, it was just so frustrating and just sad. And so at the same time,
helpless.
Yes. But it was kind of a waiting game. But then at some point, we got to the point where we just said, this is enough. And then we started searching for someone else to take over the property. And that got handled pretty quickly. Once we knew what direction we were going, we were able to find someone and get it going. But by then it had been delayed for a year or more. And it was just at that point, we were getting to the point where we only have this much cash left over, and we're going to have to decide whether or not we want to actually rent this place. Can we, and how are we going to get out of this? So at that point, once we did finish it, we decided it would be better just to sell it.
And then how did you guys split up the roles when you're going new construction on something? There's a whole lot of facets that go into all the property and operations and accounting and all that. How did you guys split that up?
Erik handles that. He's the one. He's the one who handles all the contractor issues. And because I think I'm a pretty patient person when it comes to my work and all that. If I'm not as patient when it comes to dealing with contractors, I think, because I want it done right now and I want it done this way. Mm-hmm. And I think Erik's a little more reasonable about that. And maybe we gave that person a little more leash than we probably should have. I'm not sure. And I'm not blaming Erik for that at all. But I'm the person who, when it comes to finishing the build or when we're ready to start renting the property, I'm the one who makes sure that everything's outfitted and orders everything and gets things ready to go in terms of also the listing and getting that ramped up.
So we divide roles like that once things get rolling.
And then once you're into just to go, because you do have multiple short-term rentals, how do you guys split up the operations of the short-term rentals and dealing with cleaners, handyman, guests? Like, how does that work? Whoever sees it first goes, or?
No, a lot of the things, if it's emergent, I end up usually doing that because there's a chance that she's at work and just can't take the calls and deal with that. I deal with more of the maintenance things once we have a property.
He deals with the problems.
Basically, yeah.
If there's a problem, if there's someone who's unhappy, if there's something that's broken, if there's any of those things, he gets to handle that.
Yeah, well, it's true because I've had years and years and years of customer service, and the difference between her customers and my customers is my customers can just walk out the door. Her customers are a little bit more, should we say, committed. And it's been very valuable to me to be able to do that. But she handles the back end of things. Like she said, she does the setups. She sets up the digital end of things, which is really, really, really important. She has figured out the automation with our property management system, and she builds websites that go with them. If somebody wants direct booking, she can do that. She's more willing to wait on hold or Airbnb or Vrbo. I do not have that kind of thing because she has that persistence. Like, I'm going to get this thing through. We're going to win. And so we do have, and it's taken time over time to figure out who fits what role, who can stand what role, who can, maybe it's a job that both of us don't like, but who can tolerate it better or who's better at it. And so over time, we've shaken those things out to divide and conquer.
So how do you live together, work together, coexist, cut off say we're done working, although Airbnbs never are done. Like, how do you have that balance and dynamic, or how do you try to have that not split a little bit, I guess?
I think that's one of the things that's a bit unique about us is that we don't shut it off completely. And I want to more maybe than she, there's times I just want to put the phone down and just let them just like, hey, this is not my time. But with vacation rentals, as you mentioned, someone needs to take that call, right? And so we talk about things. We try to structure things as business partners, not just a couple where we say, okay, here's our monthly review. We're going to sit down, and I do. And this goes to me. It's a little bit more
tell us more about that too.
When she goes to work, they tell her what the system's going to be. And her job is to follow the system they give her. And that makes her a good, worker there. In my world, I have to make the system. And so I'm used to that. And so we have monthly and quarterly things that we do together. In other words, it's a worksheet where we go through and we talk about, are we using automation to its fullest capacity at this property? Are there vendors that we need to address problems with? Is there capital that we need to redeploy? Is this the highest and best use of this piece of real estate, et cetera? We just go through that on a fairly regular basis. I mean, we sometimes will miss a meeting together, but we have a system for that so that we're not just letting things just slide on, which we did early on. We would just let things slide and slide and slide. And then we'd all of a sudden say, oh my gosh, how did we get here? We need to address this. And I thought about it and thought, well, no, wait a minute. If we ran this like a business, would a business do this? No, a business would say, here's our goals, here's our objectives, here's our KPIs, and then we're going to check those things. And where are we off? And we have tried to be very regular with that. We do have quarterly and certainly annually goal setting time where we sit down together and say, where do we want to be over the next year? What are our priorities? Do we want to buy something this quarter? And if the answer is no, then we just don't worry about the buy box. If it's like, we might, okay, then we need to start getting busy building a buy box.
Which we should be doing very soon here.
Well, and we talk about that. It's like, where are we? What's next? What's happening? Right now, we're investigating, all right, what is next, and really being aggressive about looking at lots of different opportunities there.
And what's your trigger to go, okay, now we need a new or a different buy box? Because you both were very clear on that. So how did you get that clarity?
I don't know. We're just, that's a hard question to answer. We're still trying to.
But like, how do you know it's time for something different or new? Like, you could go buy another short-term rental. You could go buy more long-term. You could just sit on the sidelines.
I don't think that we absolutely know how that's a good question, and it's a hard one. But I think some of it's like, do we have the assets? Do we have the time?
I think it also relates to, there's some things that are still kind of in flux, like the Maui situation. Yeah. We haven't gotten to the point where we're like, okay, let's go. Let's be done with this. So we're still kind of in limbo on that, and we're kind of waiting to hear what's going to happen. And then at that point, make some changes. But this year is also coming to an end, which also makes things a little more, timely. We have to come up with some things we need to do. So we're at this point, we're still researching. Erik's doing more researching. My summer has been very busy. I've been working more than I wanted. Well, I don't know about more than I wanted.
We traveled a bunch.
Yeah. But then I have this tendency that if I know I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks, then I feel like a little bit of guilt to not be working. And so then I put on extra. But then when I'm working extra, I'm like, why did I do this to myself? So it's just a balance. And so I haven't had opportunity to really think about where we're going to go with real estate. I've been kind of busy just working. So
that makes a lot of sense.
In thinking about your question, I think how do we know when it's time to move is the fact that we have those regular meetings where we ask the questions that a business manager owner would ask themselves. If we owned this, which goes to maybe another point, if we were managing this for someone else, what would we do? What would they expect us to do? Well, they would expect us to review things. Well, how are things going? Do we need to change vendors? And there was a time when we had that question on our discussion list, and we thought about the recent issues we'd had with the vendors, and we said, yes, actually, we do need to change vendors here. We need to move. Because, you get used to discomfort. It's like, this is a problem. Oh, this is a problem. You just keep doing with the problem until somebody just says, wait, snap out of it. Do you have to deal with this problem, or is there a different solution? And I think by asking ourselves that, that's when it just cues up and go, you know what? Actually, something's going on.
Kind of like when they said, oh, you're going to have to be doing more call, and oh, you're going to have to be doing these work weekends. I'm like, no, I don't. Now I'm going to do something else. And to that point, when I did decide that, it wasn't good timing for me to decide that, but we still went ahead and did it. And so some of those things are uncomfortable when you make that decision, like when we had to find a new cleaner, when we had to find a new pool person. I mean, it's never fun for us to say, hey, you aren't meeting our expectations of this. We need to go a different direction. And we try as much as possible not to burn any bridges, but at the same time, it's just like, this clearly is not working out. And I will say, once we did switch over, this year has been phenomenal in terms of taking that off our table and not having to worry about, is something going to get missed at this house? Is the pool going to be dirty and people are going to complain? And then we're going to have the pool person say, back when I was a kid, it didn't matter if the water was terrible or whatever. And we're just like, enough of the commentary. We just want it taken care of.
We just want it done. Let's go. Let's go.
Get it done. Yeah.
Well, those like lessons and bumps along the way. There's one that just came to mind that was hilarious that we had a reel on at one point, but where there was a felon that was going to meet Erik at a property. And I really need to hear this from your perspective because that was one of the most hilarious things that I've ever heard.
It's just, I did not, I already am a little, that's the other thing. I'm a little more of an anxious person. So I tend to be, whenever anything.
It's a crisis.
It's a crisis. And that's the problem why Erik has to handle some of these things because I recognize that about myself. So it's always the worst case scenario when something, like if he gets a phone call and I'm watching him, I'm like, what happened? And he's like, nothing's happened. Everything's fine. So I was in charge of checking their person's credit report. And this was the first time I'd ever done that.
Okay. So you're doing the credit report for a long-term rental, a potential tenant coming in. Okay.
15 years ago. We didn't even have a move in yet.
Yeah. Okay. We were just making sure that everything was good to go before he could move in. So I got the credit report, and apparently when you get the credit report for the background check, it lists several names when you go through the search, and you just have to determine if that person's the one that is actually going to be. And so he happened to have a very common name, like, I don't know, Mark Smith or something like that. And so, of course, I'm scanning and I see this person's a felon. And then I just get really worried. And then I realize Erik's going to be meeting this guy. And so I'm trying to get him and then call him on the phone. Those TV shows it's just like, oh, you got to get him in time. And so I'm trying to tell him that this is terrible. And then he's like, what's going on?
So I pick up the phone and I'm standing at the front door of our vacant rental. And this guy is standing in front of me, and I get the phone. She keeps calling and calling and calling. And usually I'm the one who's like, you know what? I won't take the call while I'm visiting with someone. But she kept calling and calling. Like, this must be really urgent. So I take the call. He's standing in front of me at the rental property. And why don't you tell him what you told me?
I don't know what I told you. I just felt like it was terrible. I was just like, I said probably he's a felon or he's
a little more energy. So she's telling me like, he's a violent criminal. He's a felon. He's like, and I'm starting to back away from the guy. And he's looking at me like, what the heck is going on your phone? And she's like, he's violent. Oh, wait. No, wrong person. Never mind. And so I put the phone down. He's like, is everything okay? I'm like, no problem. Don't worry about it.
That's phenomenal. Did you have a Ring? Was that before Ring cameras and stuff? Because that would have been so amazing if that could have been.
Yeah, this would have been good. But
anyways, I've learned my lesson.
We have a better system for screening now, and we're a lot less drama involved in it now.
Yeah, and honestly, long-term rentals do not have very much drama at all.
Right.
Pretty rare. I mean, you hear people say, oh, I don't want to mess with that, but it's really not that hard.
And they're slow. The wrecks at long-term rentals are almost like they happen in slow motion.
Yes.
And so you got time to deal with this stuff. In vacation rentals, it's all quick. It has to happen right now. We don't have hot water. The door won't open. I can't get in.
The refrigerator's dead. It's like, okay, I guess we're going to be shelling out $1,000 for a refrigerator. Yeah. Okay, we'll just switch that out right now.
Today.
Yeah, it's just money that kind of goes out of our pockets sometimes. But that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
At the same time, you have to think about, okay, that person is paying this much money.
And they have expectations.
Yeah, and we're going to meet those expectations.
So kind of as we're getting to the end, I wanted to touch definitely on your faith and mindset and resilience, because I know that you've had different personal challenges with health and whatnot over the years, but also that it's heavily rooted in faith as well. So what role does faith play both in your relationship and in your business mindset, and then into your mindset and goals and just kind of how you operate in life in general?
Well, I mean, obviously it's going to be God first. And so I think in the light, looking at our lives and how we do things and also our relationship, it has to go through that lens first. And so being stewards of what we've been given is really important to us, and also gives us a little bit of distance and in what happens to those things.
In the sense that we view ourselves, or try to view ourselves, as stewards of these things and not to selfishly use everything. I remember I listened to a message by Timothy Keller, and he said, if you are a Christian and you are living up to the full potential of your lifestyle, you need to question if you're actually a Christian. Meaning you should be giving, you should be supporting, not just consuming everything that you have the capacity to consume. You get $1, you spend $1. You get $10,000, you spend $10,000. And so we have made giving a really significant part of what we do. And that's important. Now, to the good times, that's what we could do. Well, we do that in good times and bad times. We make annual commitments. That's one of the goals that we do. It's one of the things that we do. And during our we had a triple whammy happening a couple years ago, not that long ago.
Last year.
We had to discuss, are we going to keep giving?
Yeah.
Right? Because we had these commitments to places. And we said, there was a couple months where I was making calls to people saying, how much money do you have in the bank? Could you make us a private loan? Because we're not sure if we're going to be able to make our payments. And I'm not talking like $100. This was significant stuff. And we made the commitment that we are going to keep our commitment to giving, even though things are like we're doing calls to people to say we might need help covering our bills.
Yeah. Just like a bridge. I mean, we knew we had it, but we also knew
we were at a tight spot.
Yeah.
We were at a gap. We didn't know how we're going to get from one side to the other side. And so we decided, we're going to keep giving. So that's one of the things that's important. And, I was really called out on that, for me anyways, when Maui happened, because I'd said, we're stewards of this stuff. And then when we got that hit, which if you haven't listened to the past episodes, the mayor there decided he was going to eliminate 7,000 legal rentals from the vacation market that had been legal since before they were even built. They're just going to change the law. I took that very personally. I mean, really, really personally. It was a real gut punch to me because it brought back to me, because I lived in Hawaii before, and it brought back to me the memories of bullying and prejudice and some of the unfairness that I experienced there. And
because you're white.
Yeah, straight up. And so if you're listening to this and you can't hear the dog whistle about racism and so on that other people talk about, I'm here to tell you it's real and it's not cool and it's not okay. And you should pay attention to that. So when this happened again, and there was a lot of
rhetoric,
a lot of mean talk on social media, I took it very personally. And I realized, wait a minute, I've said that this was an asset that I'm a manager of. I'm a steward, this high and noble sounding thing. But I'm acting like people are stealing from me personally, and I want. And that really was a call out to my faith to say, wait a minute, you say one thing, but you're feeling something very different. You need to address that. And so that has been a journey for me to have to really let that go and give it that distance that she mentioned and to put that into practice. So we have our goals, we have our aspirations, we take steps towards there, but we do it imperfectly.
Well, and that speaks to your character of how you guys chose to make those decisions and keep your commitments. And then you're just being resilient, going, hey, something is going to work out, and knowing that, hey, the mindset's a little off right now. I'm going to check myself. And it seems awesome that you can do it together in a partnership to where you've got someone to lean on when times are hard.
Well, and the thing is, God has been good. I mean, even with all the things that happened last year, we're in a position that, I mean, for us to be able to even think about, the possibility of me retiring or, us making significant changes in what we're doing for work. I mean, that financial freedom is really priceless. And we have that. Yeah. And even though it was tight for a couple months right there, that was not a problem.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's a little bit different about our relationship, they say that I think money discussions and so on is one of the leading causes of friction in relationships. Mm-hmm. Going way back, we have been so closely aligned on that pretty much our entire time that is not, it just isn't. That is not one of the things that we stress about. Well, we stressed about it together, but it's not, this is really important, is that it's not me feeling the friction against her, right. That's the problem, is that we together are a team fighting this external challenge that we have. Mm-hmm. And that is huge because if she were to blame me, I can't believe you got us into this kind of a thing, then that deep emotional and relational damage, and that's very real in many partnerships and couples. For us, we don't struggle with that. It is us against the problem. It is not us against each other. And I think that's really important if you're working with your spouse or another partner to say, what is the problem? Is the problem your partner or spouse, or is the problem the problem? And which one are you fighting?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times if we get into a situation, it's always like, okay, now what? We're not gonna dwell on it. And sometimes one of us dwells on it more than the other. Like Erik he was like really upset about Maui. And I was kind of to the point where, okay, well, this is where we're at. There was
money.
We couldn't see the future, and this is what we did. This is what we thought we were guided to do, and now we just have to deal with it. And here we go. What are we going to do?
And that's an important point, is that we seldom have the same exact feeling at the exact same time. If she's feeling pessimistic about something, usually I'm like, it's not going to be that bad. We'll get through it. And flip side is if I'm feeling like, let's burn it all down, she's like, yeah, come on, let's just give it a couple days. And that's really important that we have that balance.
That's so powerful. That is very inspiring and powerful and awesome to hear and to see and feel that dynamic that you guys have. Man, I could talk to you for hours. We're probably going to need to have you back on and we're going to talk more about different angles. But is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to share, or just advice or anything that you'd like to give to our audience? The whole point of this is we want to tell the truth about real estate investing. Clearly, we're all addicted to real estate and business and we enjoy it, but just any advice or a nugget that might help someone who's going through a tough time.
Maybe part of your story. I get to be on here all the time.
I think as a physician, sometimes we get caught up in just the daily grind and the levels or the requirements that you have to meet. And you get busy doing just work. And sometimes that's kind of a ball and chain. And you can't see that there's something else out there, or the ability to have a little bit more freedom. And you may think that this is what I have, and this is what it's going to be until I retire. And it doesn't have to be that way. And it's important to look around and see what the possibilities are, and to also have a plan for your financial future. Because if you don't think about that, when you get through training and you're just getting started, you feel like, okay, now I've made it. But really, it's a journey, and you just have to keep going. And sometimes some of those things fall by the wayside. It's important to look at diversification, and also you could also just put the money somewhere else, like in the stock market or whatever, but just do something. You can't just work and think that it's all going to end up okay. I think that's one of those things.
True story. You can't just ignore it and hope it all just magically happens.
Right.
Awesome. Well, if people want to follow along on your guys' journey or hear more, is there a good place they can find you on social media or?
Yes. And it's a classic story of how we work together. I innovated and started and invented the Instagram thing and was posting on it regularly. And then, because that's me, that's what I do. I get something started, and I'm now is frustrating to me, the social media thing. Listen to earlier episodes, you'll hear it. And so I turned it over to her, and she was more regular about things.
Well, I don't know about regular. I tend to just post whenever I feel like posting. But if someone wants to contact us, they can contact us there, and we're happy to share information. And
tell them what it is.
It's Winning with REI. Yep. So I'm happy to share what we know. I think it's just a way to hopefully be inspiring for other people.
You'll see a lot more of her on there. And if it's me, it's her doing video of me. Yeah, it's Winning with REI, stands for Real Estate Investing, not the sporting goods store. I'm a fan of that too, but we're not.
Two great places. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can attest, I love the content that you put out when it just resonates so well when you post it. I'm like, yep, me too. Awesome. All right, Erik, you want to take us out of here?
Yes, this is part of my job here. Is thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast. We appreciate you going along on the journey with us, and that's what it is it's a journey. If anybody tells you it's a destination and they're there and they're done, they have something to sell you. And that's not what's happening here. We're here to tell you about the good, bad, and the truth about real estate investing. Thank you for joining us. Please leave us a review, drop us a line, share this with a friend who you think could use this. Thank you for joining us. Come back again. Join Christy Candle and I, Real Estate Pessimist Podcast. Thanks.